Are you looking for a resource to discuss all topics air conditioning? Well, you're in the right space. Join the Rawson boys as they discuss the hot topics and the cold hard facts. This is the Air Conditioning Podcast.
G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the Air Conditioning Podcast, where we discuss all things air conditioning, the hot topics and the cold hard facts. Wow, what a chilly week it's been so far, Brad.
Chilly and foggy. On the drive in this morning, could barely see.
Was it really?
Yeah. Very nice though. A few kangaroos around.
Was it?
Yeah.
Didn't hit one.
No, I didn't hit one, that was good.
That's a good thing. And good for business though.
Yeah, definitely. The phone is ringing. That's a good thing.
We want brass monkey weather. We don't like that warm stuff, do we?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So we have got some guests lined up today, Brad, on the show.
Yes, we do. We've got two. We're very lucky to have two guests from AIRAH. So we'll get to them shortly.
Yeah. I thought what we might do is just do a bit of a coronavirus update. According to the World Health Organization, globally, we're currently at 8.9 million confirmed cases, 469,587 deaths, 152,325 new cases. Australia, almost 7.5 confirmed cases, 102 deaths, and 6,915 recovered. Victoria, as we talked to the guys before we hit record, having gone through a bit of a setback at the moment.
Well, not a slump, a bit of a spike.
Yeah, they have. And 17 new cases reported apparently yesterday, with currently 131 active cases. As of the 22nd of June, the restrictions have tightened, and I'm led to believe that numbers in homes have been reduced to 5 inside and up to 10 gatherings outside. But businesses are also taking a hit. They're being reduced to 20 people in any one space, which is most upsetting for particularly hospitality and everyone else that's affected. So it's not good at all. And then we have Essendon Football Club.
Yeah, that was a strange one.
That was a strange one. Tested positive. 5 players go into isolation. However, in the last 24 hours, negative.
Yeah. Crazy.
What's all that about?
Yeah.
World number 1, Novak Djokovic, also tested positive. So he's just finished playing a series of exhibition matches, ignoring social distancing.
Living the dream.
Irresponsible?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Especially
what it's been like over there.
So. Doesn't send a good message, does it, to upcoming tournaments. SA, on the other hand, South Australia has had some good news. As of Monday the 29th of June, no more patron restrictions in venues, but 2 square metres of distancing rules. This is a big one. Adelaide Oval given the green light for crowds of up to 25,000 people.
I reckon we'll get the grand final there yet.
It's a big call, I reckon. But
okay.
Up to 5,000 for SANFL matches. WA, finally, WA, 30,000 capacity of this oval. So that's great news for them as well. So the message out of all this, guys, stay safe, be responsible, keep socially distanced, and stay the hell home if you are feeling unwell. Brad? I'm with the show. So, guys, thank you for waiting. We'd like to introduce you to Mark Vender and Tony Gleeson from AIRAH. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Brad.
And you cooped up in your houses, are you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Nowhere else to go, really.
That's all right.
We should clarify that the guys are currently living in Victoria, so yes. we feel your pain, and we're sorry to hear that you're going through this. And
hopefully it'll get better soon.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're hoping for it, definitely.
Yeah. So, for those who aren't familiar with AIRAH, there wouldn't be too many because most of our audience is techs and HVAC type business owners. So, but for those who aren't familiar, guys, could you just fill us in on what the acronym AIRAH stands for and what you're all about?
Yeah, look, AIRAH stands for the Australian Institute of Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heating. And it started in 1920, so we've been around for 100 years. And it really follows on the work that another Melburnian, or perhaps even someone from Geelong in Victoria, James Harrison. He was the inventor of mechanical refrigeration. And James's background was that he was actually the editor of The Age and the Geelong Advertiser. He ran printing presses. He didn't want the ink to smudge on the printing presses. So he then found through the use of chemicals and so forth that he was able to produce effectively a small refrigerator by putting effectively alcohol through a small tube under pressure. He then, over the years, developed that. See what happens when you don't have television or the internet. You've got plenty of time to play around with things. He basically developed a way of creating a freezer. And he then got into meeting exports of basically meat to Europe. Like all great Australian inventors, unfortunately, his invention probably lacked the money for further expansion, and lo and behold, an Englishman got the idea and went off with the idea of basically frozen meat exports to Europe. And effectively, James almost died penniless, but he is known quite around the world in history as being the father of mechanical refrigeration.
It's quite incredible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Pretty talented guy.
Yeah, yeah. And so, guys, what does the purpose of AIRAH, what role do you play in this industry?
Yeah. Look, I think, AIRAH plays the role of basically trying to improve the industry. I believe that it's representing the industry, and in many states the industry is hidden by, for example, under electrical and plumbing regulations. HVAC and R industry doesn't stand alone, so we represent that industry. We're advocating for that to be a standalone industry and recognised as that. But we're also there about providing education through our magazines, through our own podcast and our own webinars. We've just had over roughly about 1,400 people attend our webinars through the lockdown period. And so it's all about educating and bettering the industry, providing support where traditionally there isn't any support. And what I mean by that, we provide textbooks, design application manuals, and so forth. And this is all through the members' money, through the membership money. One of the things I will say, we don't necessarily get a lot of support from many governments to produce this. So this is all through the efforts of the members to produce and improve the industry. So we're there to advocate and promote it as an industry and support it.
Why is it that the government? Why don't the government put money towards it, do you think?
I think it's because it's often hidden under, like I said, plumbing or electrical trades union. A lot of the certificate courses, for example, are actually under electromagnetic curriculum, or in some states you actually have to have some sort of plumbing certification to do it, electrical certification. And I think the other thing is that all of the material that we, under engineering and mechanical engineering, if we go to the engineering level, there is no specific courses in any of the universities in Australia that actually allow or teach HVAC and R principles. So it's sort of a hidden industry. I think the other thing is too, the only time we ever complain about air conditioning and heating and refrigeration is when we break it. It breaks down.
Exactly.
We don't go, I wonder where that guy's come in. I wonder where he's got his qualifications from, or why can't that be done better? It's hidden industry.
Yeah. It's quite specialised though at the same time.
It's high technology. A lot of the university students or TAFE students, when we go present, I say it's high earning. That's been proven. Both at the technician and the engineering level. It's a very clean industry. It's full of technology. It's only going to advance. It has a lot of green aspects. So if you are in that greeny space, boy, it's all about energy efficiency because it is tied to cost. But you look at all the big companies today. You look at all the supporting research is all about how can we do this greener, which really means cheaper. But it is a green, clean industry, and it's and full of technology. So you'll never be bored learning.
Exactly right.
And you mentioned
And of course,
sorry,
of course, it's a job you can take anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's forget about being a lawyer or an accountant because you have to learn local laws and all that stuff. Yeah, there's local regulations.
Yeah.
But, gee, you can take it anywhere in the world.
It's universal, isn't it?
That's true. And you mentioned the members, Tony. How important are the members to?
Well, they're the lifeblood. They're the ones that help us. I think it's an army of volunteers. Our design application manuals are all, and committees that go around our conferences, our events, people who actually help us in our advocacy. They're the lifebloods. They're the ones that help us drive our opinions. And recently, and maybe Mark can talk about this, we've done a licensing survey amongst them. They're the ones that determine it. And it's an army of volunteers, and basically they commit back into the industry. None of them get paid. It's all about that volunteerism to make the industry better.
Yeah. And how many members on board now?
We've got over 4,000 members. They're individual members. And on top of that, we have basically partnerships with larger companies of about another 10,000, we say, in that space.
And that's growing steadily?
Well, it has. We've seen certainly an increase in the last couple of years. I think that's because I think there's a degree of people wanting. I think there's quite a few things that are needed to be debated or to be able to be advocated for. You think deeper down, there's been the Share Gold Weir report that's come out over the last period of time, and hvac and AIRAH practitioners want to have a voice in this.
Definitely.
We talk about we talk about the licensing in the refrigerant space. We talk about government regulations. It's more practitioners wanting to have a voice in this space.
Do you think? Do you guys believe that there should be an actual refrigeration license as such for to obviously buy refrigerant, but also use it and to be doing refrigeration type work?
Mark, maybe you'd like to add, because Mark's done a lot of work in this space recently.
Yeah, look, I mean, you guys are aware of the, AIRAH put out a position statement on hvac and AIRAH licensing in Australia earlier this year, and I saw that you were promoting the survey that we ran online, so thanks for that. And the reason we did that partly was because, so many of our members, and also, what we were hearing in the industry was that there was a need for improved licensing in Australia.
Yeah.
So when you ask if it's needed, yeah, definitely it's needed. I think we've got some licensing regimes in place already. The question is, how can we make them work better? And that's sort of where we're coming from with this piece of work that we're doing. And, the other part of it is probably what Tony mentioned. It's partly about recognition, right? I think what we've got at the moment is a very patchwork type of solution. And in some states, refrigeration, air conditioning is being placed underneath other trades, so it's not seen as a trade of its own. And that's one of the messages that's come through really loud and clear in all our consultations with the industry, is that, there's a desire for recognition. Not just to be, please don't call us electricians, please don't call us plumbers, this is a trade of its own.
That's right. Yeah, it's definitely something I think that needs to be pushed, and obviously there's a lot of people. If you're reading all the forums and so forth on the internet, pretty much every person in the industry feels that way. So maybe it's maybe we don't have the numbers that some of the other trades have. Would you think that would be a bit of a scenario?
I don't know.
Look, I think a lot of the numbers, there's a lot of hidden people that work around the periphery of it. You know, and in reality, there's a lot of people that call themselves plumbers, but they're really HVAC and AIRAH practitioners. A lot of people that like to consider themselves engineers, but they're mechanical engineers, but really their whole focus is around HVAC and AIRAH. And because look, let's be honest, it doesn't sound a sexy industry. Right? It doesn't sound like I'm an engineer and I build space rockets or I build racing cars. And people tend not to, I think, gravitate to this to calling it that industry, unless it's basically their prime income. And even then, I think a lot try to gravitate around other areas like design or application and being a technician, but they won't come out and say, I work in HVAC.
Yeah, I'm a refrigeration mechanic.
Yeah, I'm a mechanic, full stop. You know?
That's right, That's right,
And
exactly
also,
right.
I think, and some people certainly have broader aspects, you know, they do other things as well. But
do you find your members come from a broad spectrum from across the country, or are they sort of focused in pockets?
Oh no, I think they're very broad spectrum. And in reality, most people, when you talk to them in our membership, they didn't start out. They didn't have the dream as a 15-year-old boy or girl saying, I want to work in HVAC and AIRAH. Whether it's in a trade or whether it's an engineer. A number of the engineers we speak to, they say, how'd you get into it? Well, I applied for a job and I joined this big company, and they said, great, as your experience as an engineer, you're going to go and work out in this HVAC and AIRAH space. And they hadn't heard anything before it. Or someone in apprenticeship, you hear lots of stories saying, somebody knows somebody. It's a good, clean trade, good money, you should go and give it a go. Well, all right, but it wasn't their heart's desire. And as that, we get a broad spectrum of people right across the aspect. We also get a lot of people over the years, they change within the fields. What I mean by that, they start off, for example, as a technician and then moved right up and moved up to actually owning substantial companies. But they're really broad. There isn't one type of person that you could say, right, that person is our average technician or average engineer or average whatever.
And I'd imagine that AIRAH being one of the few support networks that the industry has, you would have probably people contacting you, venting their frustrations, and probably your members, I suggest. What are you hearing from members and others about the frustrations within the industry?
Mark, you should have a go at this first because you have to deal with a lot of them, and only deal when they're really bad. But Mark.
I do. I was laughing just before, not because our members have frustrations, but when you first said that, what did come to mind is that we do field a lot of phone calls just from the general public, actually. They just look up an organisation that's involved in air conditioning and they'll call us up and, tell us that someone's installed an aircon system at their place and, there's some kind of problem with it. So we get all kinds of inquiries. But look, I guess when it comes to our members and the kinds of issues that they're facing, it's across all of there's a massive spectrum of stuff that our members work on, I think, as Tony was just saying. So I guess to give you an idea, we have groups called special technical groups that sort of work in themes, So we've got a refrigeration special technical group at STG, big data STG. I think there's one on, hospital operating theatres. So really, environmentally sustainable design, resilience. We've got one which is the Women of AIRAH. So there's lots of different concerns, and I mean, usually it relates to things that are going on in their spaces. So whether that be, changes to regulations, development of new standards, or, I guess lately, over the last 3 or 4 months, impacts of COVID-19 has been huge. That's probably been the single biggest thing that we've had this year. And of course, before that, all of the, issues with the bushfires and the smoke and how that was affecting HVAC systems. So, we get a really wide range of inquiries from our members.
Mm. The certificate to restricted licenses is obviously a very big bone of contention within the industry, and whenever it sort of comes up, or you see something pop up on Facebook, and you tend to get the industry just jumps on it, and you can just sense the frustration around that. Do you think that the certificate to restricted licensing was a good idea? I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
I think firstly, AIRAH's position is very clear. It's a Cert 3. The Certificate 3 is what should be there, should be mandated, should be the minimum. That's our position. If you go back over the years, though, really Certificate 2s were originally put into place to grandfather people who'd been in the industry for 20 years or more, and effectively had come from a background before certificates even existed. What hasn't happened is, and I think people recognise that had a great value back in the day, I think it's outlived its usefulness because people now do have the opportunity for Certificate 3s. I think the other aspect of it is that the Certificate 3 itself is providing a more broader aspect, more a rounded type of technician that we've got in that space. But we've also got the challenge is there's a great demand for work out there in particular areas. And so how do we go through a transition to make sure that the work is still done as we go from a certificate, wind out Certificate 2 to Certificate 3? Now, I think there's a process and we're advocating for that. So what I'm saying is just don't get rid of Certificate 2s overnight. Let's begin this process of winding it down and moving to the Certificate 3. And that process hasn't begun yet, by the way.
And traditionally that was the apprenticeship, wasn't it? It was a Certificate 3, I think. But the Certificate 3 came in later on. But originally it was you're doing an apprenticeship, which was 4 years, I think 3 years on the theory side, and then you had a year in the field. And that year in the field, I think, is quite important as well to be an all-rounded technician. Because I mean, at the end of the day, when you come out of your apprenticeship, you're brand new to the trade. There's a lot to learn.
And I think also with this concept of Certificate 2 and Certificate 3 and so forth, on the job working and recognition, and even having a framework around that should be in place to recognise the time you've spent. And that was sort of the basis of what a Cert 2 was. But now, effectively, you may almost don't need to have any time on the job. Do a certificate, now I can do X and Y and Z. That recognition of that time on the job has sort of gone away, or certainly not as strong as it was, say, 20 years ago, for example.
I think the Certificate 2 was definitely watered down with some of the conduct of the training organisations that were actually carrying out that course as well. I think that's had a big effect on the quality of people coming out of that, I suppose.
Well, I can't really comment on that, but we can certainly comment on the fact that if we have a look at there's certainly, in our magazines, HVAC in Our Nation, we have a whole section dedicated onto poor installation. There's evidence out there. But the evidence hasn't been collected on who does a Cert 2 getting better versus Cert 3. I mean, they're the sort of things that need to be done. But we do, as an industry, want to raise the level of that industry up. And I go back to teaching years ago, you didn't need any degree to teach. Sorry, you needed a degree, but there was no course. This is only 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Walked straight out of university, you can teach. Well, now they're talking, well, actually it is, it's a 2-year degree now. So I think and that's recognising the time in front of, in a classroom or an apprenticeship is valuable, and you need that to be able to do the job. And there's, like I said, there's no recognition of that. I think
We put out a post, guys, because we mentioned that you were coming on the show, and if anyone had any questions directly to ask you, I'll just read out a couple if you would help us with this. We've had some comments on Facebook via the AIRAH Facebook page. Nathan Connolly said, can we find out how much pushback AIRAH have applied against the Cert 2 and influx of other trades in our industry? You got some comments around that for us?
Well, I think to begin with, in our core position statement, which you can clearly find on the internet and that we've clearly distributed, is that Cert 3 is what we should be at, and that we should be working towards a phase away from the Cert 2. That has been presented to government, to various government bodies, including the ARC. And it's our position that we're trying to advocate and get more people across. So certainly that. Mark, any other, you've been across some of this too?
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I mean, this is an effort that's been going on for probably the better part of a year, driven by the members of our refrigeration special technical group at AIRAH. So, it's been a fairly slow process, I guess, of let's get this position statement in place. Let's get some feedback on the position statement. So it's been partly, the survey, and I should say also thanks to AIRAH, who really helped to promote that survey as well. And now the next step is, we've kind of got all that feedback. I think what it's saying is that there's overwhelming support for, the main pillars of AIRAH's position. And now we're kind of we're going to be taking it to the regulators. We're going to be taking it to other industry bodies, which continue to strengthen it. But I guess it's also, we got to put forward a compelling case for change as well. So that's kind of the next step. It's all very well for us to say, hey, this is our position, and send it to somebody, and then it gets put in a drawer or something. But we've got to keep those dialogues going and start to actually look at where we can change things, and that may happen in many different ways as well.
Yeah. And I think hopefully that's why we sort of decided to do this podcast, was so that we could talk to people like yourselves, and let's keep the momentum moving, I suppose. We're all of this together, as they say. So now Peter Cairns from AIRAH said, why do you have the ARC as a key partner? Do you think having ARC as a key partner sends a message to the government that we, the HVAC industry, also condone and support ARC's existence? From a technician's point of view, don't you think that having the ARC as a key partner is turning said technicians away from AIRAH?
Well, I think the number one thing is here, if you're not at the table to debate these things, if you're not able to put your position, you're just seen as people, potentially be seen as just throwing stones from outside the tent. It's far better to be in the tent, be part of the debate, be part of those discussions, and making people aware of our position. We're not the only one who is in partnership with the ARC that agrees with this, that Cert 3. And trust me, there's other bodies out there that also agree with it. I think the issue is how we get the transition. I think the other thing is the ARC is predominantly an administration body. It isn't setting the agenda, it's the Australian government that sets the agenda of this. And the ARC isn't a lobbying or an advocacy body either. It's there to administer and provide support for the government. And this is a thing that if we're not at the table where the government is, because that's effectively they are part of the ARC, we need to be where the action is to advocate. That's the key aspect.
Claire Craig Parkin. Curious about AIRAH's thoughts on unlicensed people carrying out and cleaning of air conditioners when the Arctic Fact Sheet 13 clearly says that Certificate 2 cannot maintain or service ACs, and yet every cleaning company is doing so. Not sure how this has become a grey area when it's clearly written in the ARC fact sheet. I mean, that is something that we'd see quite a lot pop up on Facebook and about, they're doing, split cleans for $3, all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, what's your thoughts around that?
Happy to jump in on that one if you like. I mean, we're aware it's an issue. I think, yeah, like you say, we've been seeing on, the Facebook pages and stuff, this has been coming up for a while. And, the survey that we just ran, a couple of people also mentioned it. And, partly it's an issue because there are companies losing work to people who aren't qualified to maintain air conditioning systems. But, clearly it's also a safety problem. We've heard some horror stories about things that people have been told, unqualified people have been told to do to clean air conditioning systems. And, on top of that, there's the damage that they're doing to all they can do to the systems. So I guess the question's whether there should be some aspect, or the question that I've seen put out there is that should there be some aspects of cleaning that can be performed by people who have qualifications other than a Cert 3? I mean, at the moment, the licence rules state that it falls under maintenance. That means you need a Cert 3. So, I think in other states we have seen different rules for work on split systems under a certain value. Look, our position is, like Tony said, we just want a nationally harmonised system with clear rules, and we want those rules to be enforced. So, yeah.
I think the other aspect around this, there is one duct cleaning certificate out there, and that's a Cert 2. That was submitted to the Australian government to be a Cert 3, but they rated it as a Cert 2. So we've got an element of that. The other aspect is that we, AIRAH, are trying to bring in the national, it's called NADCA certification. It's fairly expensive. We're trying to bring it to Australia. Generally, it's done in the US, and that's accepted by insurance companies. So we're trying to get that out there. But there isn't a lot of training, formal education in that duct cleaning space as well. And we're advocating or trying to get something going in that. But ultimately, we believe in a Cert 3, but trying to get to that point.
That's right.
You can understand how the frustration around that, like you say, it's taking jobs away from our qualified techs. And I mean, is there a means of reporting people that perhaps shouldn't be doing it, and who should be policing it?
Well, in any system, there's always not enough police, and I don't want to be trivial, but COVID-19 is one of the good example at the moment of people checking. The issue, is that the people who come to do work, you should be asking for their qualifications. You should be asking. The end user should be policing to begin with. I know you don't go to a dentist and say, "Where's your diploma?" Right, or your degree. But ultimately, that's the level we're going to have to get to start this. And no matter what the government then needs to provide, fund that police force. I don't think at this point in time it's a high priority. But the individual owner should be asking this.
And maybe each individual tech or company needs to make the end user aware of this as well. That you need to know who's working on your equipment, and at the end of the day, it's a fair investment in your house. So. Yeah.
And I think the industry itself could also promote itself. When someone goes to an office or a home, here's my credentials. Make that to be mandatory in that space. Make the individuals too.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great. It'd be great to have some sort of carrot and stick approach, where an organisation, or for example, if I want some work done, the homeowner mandates that. And if the homeowner hasn't seen it, there's no form that hasn't been signed off, that form has to be, submitted to get paid by some, but that's really a very difficult process of it.
Final question, guys. Andrew Gardner actually does a Facebook page called Fundamental Energy, feresearch.com.au. So his question was, what's your thoughts on the ban on hydrocarbon refrigerants in Queensland? The DNRME Shadow Minister Dale Last has indicated to him, Andrew, that he will lift the ban on hydrocarbon refrigerants in Queensland if the LNP gets in the next state election on October 31st.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in again. Just to say that, look, I've seen Andrew posting a lot about hydrocarbons, during my time in the industry. And again, going back to that survey, there were a lot of comments about, the rules for hydrocarbons in Queensland. Look, I think we'll go back to, let's get nationally consistent rules. Okay, let's get nationally consistent regulations. But I guess the other side of it, and this is probably where it is a highly flammable refrigerant. The national license at the moment doesn't cover hydrocarbons, so that's certainly one of the things that we're advocating for as well. We want a license that covers all refrigerants, not just HFCs with a high global warming potential or ozone depleting gases. All these natural ones as well should be covered as well. So for safety, and I think because they're going to be used more and more in the future. We're also sort of looking at all these areas. There's things going on in each state. As you know, it's a real patchwork in Australia. So we're sort of, I will be in touch with Andrew and sort of finding out a bit more about what the latest developments there.
Sure, it's definitely a bit of a dangerous space, the hydrocarbon. Really good refrigerant, but you definitely should be having fully qualified people working on that equipment. It's just too dangerous to muck around with. So I think it's very important.
I think that's Andrew's exact point. Is I don't think it's actually a ban per se, but I think his point is that they've made it very expensive to do a changeover, and essentially what that's doing is if it's an expensive exercise and a technician has their client sort of on their case saying, well, look, we want to make it a more efficient system, etc., they go ahead and do the changeover. But of course, don't want to put their name against it because it's illegal to do it. So suddenly you end up with a very dangerous situation if that person is not going back to work on that unit.
No, I agree. I think, look, another aspect around this is that the various states are using some of what our practitioners, technicians and engineers as a bit of a political device.
Yeah, for sure.
And until I really got involved in this industry, I didn't realise the environment changed at the state borders. And what I mean by about that, who can handle what, who can handle this, and what you can do and what you can't do, and who's in the plumbing and who's in the leak. This makes it so hard to advocate because it's often used as a political device. And we're talking about people's livelihoods, people's safeties, and we're talking about and ultimately the future of our children.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
And it is used as a political device.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, look, guys, we are just about out of time. In fact, we're probably running over.
Used up enough of your time.
I've got a stack of questions here that I was hoping to get to, but we're not going to get to them today. So we'd love for you guys, if you would, to come back on again perhaps in the future, and we can run through some more questions, and no doubt there'll be more questions that come out of it from today. But if you'd be so kind as to join us again, that would be great.
Yeah, it sounds great. Be good at some point in the future to see how things have progressed as well, And
that's right. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Brad, with that said, it's almost that time.
It is that time.
I think it is that time.
It's that time.
All right. All right, here we go, guys. This is the fun bit of the show.
So who are we going to start off with?
Well,
Mark or Tony?
I'll let the guys decide. Flip a coin. Who wants to go first? Silence is the name of the player. Mark, you just got nominated.
All right, I'll take it. Go on.
I'm not sure who's going to get the last question, but we'll wait and see. So this is Keeping It Cool in the Hot Seat segment. For those playing at home, it's where we read out a series of short questions, and your shortest possible answer would be appreciated. So we ready to go?
Let's do it.
Ready?
Here we go. Favourite sport, NRL or AFL?
It used to be NRL, now AFL.
Favourite team?
Sydney.
Tony, beer, wine, spirits, or all three?
All three.
Any favourites?
Captain Morgan.
Oh,
Very nice.
yeah.
Mark, if you could change your name, what would it be, please?
Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah.
I thought we lost you for a second. You thought long and deep about that one.
You want his name or his pay packet?
Tony, if you're on a desert island with one person, who would it be?
Oh, my wife.
Very nice.
Safe answer. Safe answer.
Mark, are you a morning person, yes or no?
Yeah, morning person.
Tony, if you could be an animal, what would it be and why?
Oh, a cat. They're smart. They don't do too much work. They only hang out around with people they want to hang out with. Because if you don't treat them well, they're going to rack off.
That's right.
You know, they conserve their energy. There you go.
Very
There you
nice.
go.
Mark, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flying. Go for flying.
Yeah.
Flying. Tony, are you a toilet paper folder or scruncher?
Neither.
You're a bidet man, are you?
we had one of those last week, didn't we?
We did, Mark. What's the creepiest thing you could say whilst passing a stranger on the street?
Oh, this is a hard one.
Maybe nice to see you again.
Very good. Tony, if you were the PM, what's the first thing that you would change?
Cert 2s are
Yeah.
phased out and only mandate Cert 3s.
Very nice.
Good answer.
Mark, is a hot dog a sandwich, yes or no?
No way, man.
Tony, what's the strangest thing you've ever worn?
Oh, me? Oh,
Yes.
pirate's hat. A pirate's outfit. I quite enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
Did your wife, how did she go with that? She was happy.
No, she made me walk the plank after it.
Nice. Mark, your favourite feature about yourself?
I'm pretty fond of my legs. Yep.
Nice looking
You
legs.
happy with those?
Good pins.
Yeah, all right.
Now, Mark, you'll be glad that you asked the first one because Tony gets the last one. Tony, what is your porn star name?
Oh, Blackie Somerset.
Nice. Oh, very good. Well, there you go. There's the buzzer, guys. Well done. You got through all of those. And I hope it wasn't as awkward for you as it was for us.
The problem is you've got the now got the recording. You do anything.
That's right. That's exactly right. So
I didn't answer that question. Yeah.
That's right.
now, look, guys, thanks again for giving up your time and coming on the show today. We really, really appreciate it. And like I said before, we'd love to have you back on again. So in the meantime, we'll put a link to our show notes. And if people want to get in touch with you regarding just general stuff or memberships, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh,
Yeah, look, I think... go on, Tony.
AIRAH at airah.org.au,
Yep.
which is our general inbox, and we can deal with it there.
Yep. No
We also have a
Another thing,
podcast.
guys, the other thing, guys, hopefully, what you're doing is great. We'd like to somehow get you involved in AIRAH, either doing a vice versa podcast or
that'd be great.
We'd love
presentation,
Yep.
more to promote what you're trying to do, because you're doing a great effort trying to get the debate, the word out there. So
thank you very much.
For sure.
We appreciate that.
I when we started, I didn't think anyone was going to listen.
They showed us. Well, thanks again, guys, and Brad. And in fact, before we do that, we'll say if anyone wants to get in touch with us, airconditioningpodcast.com, Twitter, Facebook, Insta. I think that's about it. That sums it up nicely.
I think we're going to do a LinkedIn page, aren't we?
We are going to do a LinkedIn page, and we're also going to go YouTube. So watch
That's
this
right.
space.
Definitely.
We'll be getting some up on the old YouTube as well. So that just about wraps us up for now. So we're going to sign off and say thanks again, guys. Catch you later.
been great to be involved. Well done.
Until the next episode, Brad.
Be healthy. Be cool.
See you guys.
See ya.
That's all for this episode of the Air Conditioning Podcast. Be sure to stop by at airconditioningpodcast.com to connect with us, as well as on Facebook and Twitter, and join in the conversation. Until next time, stay tuned, stay positive, and stay cool.